Like, I'm not sitting here going, grr, boo, hiss. I'm so angry about this. It's just like, well, we're 5 episodes in. I think that's fair to give an assessment so far. I mean, that's past the halfway point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely have my thoughts too. I've liked a lot of this season so far. It's just there's so much room for improvement. And in the third season now, you'd think that we would have like kicked it up a lot. And it just doesn't really seem like we have in terms of like an overarching story when you compare this TV show to like other TV shows in the way that they're written. And I personally feel like Mandalorian might be better off taking more inspiration from traditional TV shows in the way that they write the storylines. And it feels like a lot of these episodes are more one-off than they are telling a larger story in a lot of ways, which we can get into. It just doesn't seem
to have focus. I think that would be the biggest thing is like it almost feels like they just don't know what to focus in on. And we're jumping around from person to person and we get all these little threads, but I don't feel like that there's any linear idea, especially because Din seems to be getting lost in the crossfire of Bo-Katan's story and then whatever was happening with Dr. Pershing and Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just waiting for it to go back to the Mandalorian. Like, that's what I'm waiting for. And I feel like right now that we're just surfing, just gliding through season 3. It's just like, they're losing me a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, there was a lot of positive stuff with this episode, I think, which we can get into. But I agree, just in terms of like the overarching view of it so far, I definitely have my critiques too. Similar to Bad Batch, like I think with that season concluding, when we can talk about this on that breakdown when we have that show. But it did tie up some things nicely, but I have my thoughts on the season as a whole, and but it did make me feel a little bit better about it after seeing the whole thing and seeing the whole picture, which, as we know, like that's kind of how I like to view these things, is let's wait for the whole season to come out before judging it. But I agree, there's like, I definitely have my thoughts as to how it's progressing, especially because it's like, oh, we have 3 episodes left, which is also like, dude, 8 episodes for a show like this, I just don't think is enough.
Well,
I think you got to have more in order to tell a really complete story. You just have to have more time to do it.
Do you feel the same way about season 2? Or do you
I'd
think
have to
season 2
rewatch
was...
season 2. I think season 2 was really comprehensive, though. They had the story of getting Grogu back to Luke, and then they kind of undid that. I think this might all stem from the Book of Boba Fett. The way
all
they
problems go back to the
season.
Book of Boba Fett.
yeah. But like, it did. If you tell me about the Mandalorian season 2, like, yes, the cohesive story was there, and there's a couple episodes where they jump around a little bit, but there was a lot of cohesiveness from one episode to the next. At least it felt like that. And even with season 1 too, you know, like one of the overarching themes of those first 2 seasons was like Din struggling with his identity and like how much he believes in the creed, you know, and he's such a strong character. And I feel like he's kind of been put to the side a little bit in this season. And that might be the overarching, like issue, or what's making me feel weird about it, is it doesn't seem to be focused on him as much as it should be. He's kind of getting Book of Boba Fetted a little bit.
He is getting Book of Boba Fetted. And the other thing, too, is the climax of season 2 was, excuse me, the climax of season 2 was the fact that Din decided there was something more important to him than his religion.
Yeah.
And in act of love, he takes off his helmet and reveals his face to Grogu. And I almost took that in a way as him rejecting, like, the Mandalorian creed and being like, no, this was my identity, but I've come to love something else more than I love myself, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like in this season, they've just reverted backwards. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't feel like there's as much intrigue. I mean, I don't even really feel the hype from the fandom, to be honest, for it. Like, I feel like weekly we're getting cool moments in episodes, but it's nothing that, you know, is making people like I can't wait for next week. Like, I'm dying to see where the story goes next week. Anyway, let's get into it. Hi, guys. Welcome to the podcast. We're just chatting Mando Season 3. Some thoughts we got to share on today's episode. But before we do that, shall we talk Star Wars news? Anything on the map for Star Wars news?
Star Wars news for me, nothing super top of mind. There's a couple rumors that I've seen that might be worth discussing in regards to the Ahsoka show. Apparently, apparently one of the things, I don't know if we talked about this yet, but they have a different actress cast as Teen Ahsoka. Do we know who that is again? Isn't she from Game of Thrones or something?
We discussed it probably a month or two ago. I believe I brought it up. It's an actress from Game of Thrones. I think it starts with like an S. I don't know if you want to look that up or not, but I know she's from House of the Dragon, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Starts with an S.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe we did talk about that. Savannah Stein.
Yeah, Savannah.
Savannah Stein, something like that. We're going to have other rumors are world between worlds visions and stuff happening there, with big news potential of Obi-Wan being in there for a second with the world between worlds stuff.
Apparently it's going to be like the different outcomes. I've heard that she's going to see different outcomes in the timeline had she or Anakin made different choices.
Right.
That's, I believe, the rumor that you're talking about. And further to that, I also heard rumors that we are going to see a live action version of her fight with Darth Vader on Malachor.
Ooh.
From Rebels.
Right. I've seen that scene before. I haven't seen all of Rebels, as we'll get into in the show, but I have seen that.
So that would be super exciting. I think that this show will deliver on flashbacks, and I think the world between world is going to be like the funnel for that to happen.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really fun. Again, these are all rumors, guys, so take them with a massive grain of salt and let's see what happens. But, I mean, it all sounds very plausible at this point, especially because some of the sources that have been reporting on this have been correct in the past.
Yeah, well, one of the sources said we might see, in one of those visions, like you said, Anakin actually killing Obi-Wan, and then she potentially strikes him down in that vision, which would be a crazy scene. I would love to see that, how that plays out.
That would be nuts. And then just bring Ewan McGregor back. Holy smokes. With Hayden Christensen and then this young actress. My gosh.
Yeah.
Like, that brain overload.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. Other than that, I don't have really, I'm trying to look here. I don't really have anything else. Wasn't a huge week for Star Wars news, honestly.
Well, it was a huge week for Bad Batch, which we're not going to get into quite yet. But
no, we will get into that on the other show, which, guys, if that's out, go check it out. Go watch that. That would be fun. And then Star Wars Celebration's quickly approaching. So, what's that, 2 weeks from now?
No. I think it starts on Thursday next week, dude.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah, it's the end of this week, so yeah.
Yeah, it's Thursday through Sunday. I'm going to be traveling, like, all day Sunday or Saturday. I can't remember, but one of those days I'm going to be traveling, and it is going to be a massive pain in the butt to get online and just like catch my Celebration news in brief glances. So I'm going to try to stay on top of it with news and sharing stuff, and then maybe I'll do a couple of reaction videos when I get back, but I'm going to be on vacation next week, so we'll have to see what gets done. But I think it's pretty much safe to say that we're going to get Bad Batch Season 3 confirmed for sure. I mean, at this rate, if it's not confirmed, that's just a stupid stance to take, because after that finale, you're like, all right.
Go ahead.
Ahsoka trailer is what I was going to say.
Yeah, they already... that's already been kind of floating around, hasn't it? Been like leaked versions of it?
There was a teaser, but I think they're actually going to release a trailer.
Okay.
There was like glimpses from the show. I don't even know if I'd actually call it a teaser or a trailer. It was a teaser trailer. No. I think
it was a minute. Yeah.
I think we're going to actually get like a legit trailer, though. I don't think it's just going to be snapshots. I think we're going to actually get some content in that show. I think we'll see some stuff on Andor Season 2 and possibly a Kenobi Season 2 announcement and possibly a Book of Boba Fett Season 2 announcement.
I agree. I think there'll be a lot of announcements here. Maybe Tales of the Jedi also Season 2.
Tales of the Jedi Season 2.
And maybe a teaser for the Acolyte. I bet very, very small pieces because the show's still shooting, from what I understand. But I wouldn't be surprised if they showed something there, and also maybe a little teaser for Skeleton Crew as well. But we will wait and see.
We will watch their careers with great interest. We'll have to see. Next week's going to be nuts.
Yeah,
but we'll get our
stay tuned
reaction
for that. We'll
videos
report
up.
on. We'll report on all that as it comes. It's crazy to think it's been a year since the last one. when I was there. A lot has happened in a year. I'm now married and I have a child on the way.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. We'll do our best to do some reactions, get the reactions to trailers up and whatnot. Again, I'm going to be traveling, so I don't know what my schedule is going to be like next week. Also, our breakdown schedule next week might be a little weird, but we'll figure that out.
Guys, in order to watch all that stuff, make sure you click like, subscribe, notification bell if you want to know when all this stuff comes out. You want to be notified, and you want YouTube to tell you when it's coming out. So you got to click that stuff. You got to click like, tell your friends about it. Go give us 5-star ratings on Apple and Spotify, anywhere you guys watch. It's appreciative. Your support is very much appreciated. Also, check out our merch store. Melissa and I need to do a refresh in there. But let us know if you guys like that, or any ideas if you guys like. It seems like Melissa's already working on it. So go check that out, but there'll be more stuff coming. There's t-shirts, hats, tote bags, sweatshirts. Everything is in there, and it's all cool stuff. It's not just our merch. It's not just another Star Wars pod merch. It's Star Wars merch in general. So go check it out. And Melissa seems to have some stuff in the works for some new
I got some depressing stuff coming.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well,
those who have seen Bad Batch will. There's things in regard to Bad Batch coming. Anyway, let's talk Mando before I want to talk about Bad Batch, because I want to talk about Bad Batch.
Well, we will in the next episode. This is Chapter 21, Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 5. This was called The Pirate. It is directed by Peter Ramsey, who also directed Rise of the Guardians and Into the Spider-Verse, which I know you really love that movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, too. That was one of those movies I went to where I was very surprised when I left. I was like, that was like so well done. It's unbelievable.
It might be one of the best animated movies of all time.
So good. Just incredible. And that second one's coming out soon. I don't know if he's directing it. I don't think he is, but either way, the second one's coming out. It was also written by Jon Favreau, and then George Lucas has a writing credit on this one on a quick IMDb search. So I don't know if maybe...
Really?
Yeah, usually it doesn't say that on them, or maybe I'm reading it wrong. But that's what it says. I mean, he's obviously a writer on all of them because it's story by George Lucas, but this one like had it highlighted on the writers, which it usually doesn't. So maybe that means something. I don't know if writing credits are weird, like the way it works. If you're consulting with somebody on a specific aspect of a show, or your idea gets made into the show, you'll get a writing credit somehow. So I don't know if that plays into it. I'm not in the Writers Guild. I don't understand it, but I know there's a process behind it. So maybe Favreau did some consulting there, or used some storylines specifically from George Lucas. I don't know. Either way, the official description of this is the people of Nevarro need protection from rampant pirate attacks. Ooh, intrigue. What do we think? I mean, the pirate, does that refer to Gorian Shard, like specifically?
Obviously. I mean, I would gather.
The guy Vane? I don't know. Sometimes they're weird and cryptic with the titles of these shows.
I think the pirate is just like the pirate, Gorian Shard. I mean, now how great would it have been if Hondo had just come in and stolen the entire episode?
Yeah, I keep thinking we're going to see him at some point. The fact that we're seeing pirates gives me hope, but you never know.
I mean, this was
like teasing it.
This was a very Clone Wars-y episode in the sense where I could just see, just copy and paste Hondo into Gorian Shard's role, and you have a Clone Wars episode. And you change Grief Karga to Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker. You know, so I felt like this was
but Hondo's not like a dick, right?
Hondo
is fun.
He's self-serving. But he does have a soft spot for the Jedi kids, if you remember in those few arcs in the Clone Wars. I think he's self-serving, but he's just really... He's Captain Jack Sparrow in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
That's a good way of looking at it. He's not like totally evil, and that's kind of how I see him too. Also, interesting thing in here, a lot of pirate themes in this episode. Obviously, this is a space western, but like they took a lot of piratey tropes and put them in here. First thing recognizably being in the music in the beginning when they're doing Mandalorian, there's like a little accordion playing in the back, like very pirate-esque sounding.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting. And then some other stuff sprinkled throughout that we can chat through as we get through the episode.
I mean, Gorian Shard, if Hondo is Jack Sparrow, then Gorian Shard is Barbossa.
And what plan be that? Avast. That's what Vane said in a
Avast,
couple
ye
episodes.
Mandalorian.
That was not a good line.
What if we just talked in pirate accents for this entire episode?
I
The
couldn't do it.
Mandalorian
I,
runs
Avast.
into ye Gorian Char.
We open up on Nevarro. Greef Karga, two civic engineers talking about the city. We hear screams. Karga's protocol droid comes in and reports that a pirate corsair is violating the airspace of the population zone. Again, love this protocol droid. It sounds like the one in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. I love that sound design. Awesome. Always brings me back to the original trilogy. So I love those little tidbits here and there. Pirate King Gorian Shard hails Karga and argues with him over the deaths of his crew at the hands of him and Din Djarin. He then starts a bombardment of the settlement. He wastes no time and just starts blasting them immediately. He is unhinged. Just doesn't care. Starts like, the guns come out. It's very much like cannons and like Pirates of the Caribbean. And they just start blasting. It reminds me a lot of the Black Pearl, Curse of the Black Pearl, when Barbossa's ship comes up and they just start firing on the city. I forget the name of it. They just start firing and invading, which is essentially what they do here.
You know what I love is Gorian Shard's ship may as well just be called like the Hammerhead. Because when they pan out and they show you that first shot of the spaceship, I was like, if that ship had a name, it would definitely be the Hammerhead.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. It's also that just little element of like, first of all, it hovering over there and having that pirate like approach, I guess, or however they did it. I just thought it's just an interesting thing to see in Star Wars, because we're used to seeing the Western type tropes, but like the piratey kind of stuff and how they intertwined it into this universe, I thought was cool. And the ship was like, it's a cool ship. It looks dope. It still has like the way their bridge is set up. It kind of looks like it's an old timey wooden ship kind of. He has the big like steering wheel or whatever that he gets to later.
The way he walks too, he has like that cane, like that or whatever he's holding on to when he walks. So he has like that half limp, like a kind of a Captain Hook,
like a peg leg guy.
Yeah, like a peg leg. It's just all very tropey, but I think it works really well. Also, I mean, going back to Gorian Shard here for a sec, in the hologram when he's talking to Greef Karga and threatening him, I love his mouth again was so Muppety in the way that it moved, and I thought it was really cool the way they combined the special effects of the hologram with that kind of Muppety effect.
Yeah, I think so too. He's a good bad guy, I thought, and it's a bummer to see him go. So Karga sends a distress message to the New Republic, Carson Tiva, however you say his name.
Oh, that's I don't know how he doesn't have like that guy.
I don't know how he doesn't have a militia or something. You don't have anyone to protect. I know he had mentioned to Din before of like helping him be the sheriff or whatever of the town, but you don't have anyone who can like fight back. That seems like you're pretty exposed in a town like that that's so renowned for being like a pirate hub back in the day. I don't know. It just seems weird to me. He doesn't have any form of defenses whatsoever.
What, Greef Karga?
Yeah, just, I don't know. You have to rely on the New Republic. What were you going to do? You just thought you'd go around forever and everything would be fine. You'd never have trouble in the town. Just seems like irresponsible.
Well, Greef Karga has a implied history as a past pirate, right?
Yeah, he does. He was in the Bounty Hunters Guild and stuff. Like, that's why I'm confused. He doesn't have people in the town to help protect it. I don't know. At the Adelphi New Republic outpost, Captain Tiva sits at the bar. The bartender informs him a message comes through and hands him a data disk. He plays the message and watches Karga's request for help. Then we see Garazeb Aurelios hears the message and sits down beside Tiva, and they discuss going to Coruscant to request permission to intercede. So this guy Zeb, who everyone is roasting me on my page right now for not knowing, cut me some slack, okay?
Oh, cut him some slack. He never watched all of Rebels. It's fine.
No,
guys.
I knew it was somebody, and I there was a part in my, so just a quick interlude right here. There was a part, and I had some kind of reaction where essentially all I said was like, oh, I know that guy or something like that. But the problem was the way I cut it up, my thing kept getting taken down for copyright strikes, so I had to go and cut more pieces of the thing together. And so I just cut that part out, and I was like, I have no idea. I know I'm supposed to know who that is, but I don't. Sorry. Okay.
I mean,
most people who watch Star Wars don't know who that is. But he was really well done. Like I know this is a big reveal, Rebels guy. Mm-hmm. He looked real. Like the CGI and like effects they used on this character, Zeb, was incredible. Like the movements, it looked very natural. It was still, you could still see the clayness of it, with the
Yeah.
CGI, but it translated really well, I thought. And obviously, big news for the Rebels people. Roast me all you want, but I appreciated that CGI element of it.
So apparently the voice actor Steve Blum did mocap, is what I'm
Oh,
hearing,
really?
for that
Oh,
scene.
that's cool.
Yeah, so they followed and animated after his facial movements, and I agree with you. I thought like the way he was reacting to things, the way he was emoting after Carson would say something, I thought was really realistic in like the
Yeah.
way that he spoke, the way that he looked at him, the way his mouth moved. I agree. I do think he translated very well to live action because I've been thinking about this last few months. I'm like, some things I don't know how well they're going to work when they come into live action. Zeb was definitely one of them. So to see that it actually worked pretty smoothly was very surprising. I do agree there were a couple moments in the animation where I was like, ah, that looks really good, but it also feels very much fake. Like he's talking to a fake person. So there were a couple moments like that, which I wasn't crazy about, but it wasn't like it didn't ruin the experience of seeing Zeb for me. Like I was just surprised to see him because it was so casual.
Were
But
you
like the second
stoked?
he walked, well, the second, I don't know if you've seen my reaction video, but he walked into the frame and the second he spoke, I was like, that is Steve Blum. And he sat down and I was kind of in disbelief. I'm like, wait, is that Zeb? Because are they bringing him in already? But that's very much a Dave Filoni move because now he's dropping hints of what happened to all these Rebels characters in these other shows. And then the Ahsoka show is going to be the culmination of all of them coming together. So it is a
Yeah.
treat to kind of see them drop one after the other.
Yeah.
But it looked great. I thought it was a fun, quick scene, but it got me pumped up for Ahsoka. And
Yeah.
further to that, somebody pointed this out to me, and I thought I recognized the woman in this bar. They do a pan out shot, like a faraway shot of Zeb and Carson, and you can see it's Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, and I think Rick. How do you say his last name? F. It's his last name starts with F.
Fawima?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's one of the other directors of The Mandalorian, and they're all sitting
Oh,
there
yeah.
and they're talking. And there's this shot because Dave is clearly in his cowboy hat, and you can see him just like looking at the Zeb character. And somebody pointed out like, "Wow, that's really incredible! A character Dave Filoni created, and he's like sitting in the same scene with him,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is nuts."
Glup-
so I thought
Glup
that was
Shido.
really cool.
He created
Glup
Glup
Shido.
Shido and brought him. That's kind of how I feel, and I'm going to get shit for this too. But this
Yeah.
always does inevitably happen. We're expected to know every single character who's ever existed in the Star Wars universe, and the Glup Shido thing is what I always think of. I'm like, and I even feel that way too. Like when I'm watching it sometimes and I recognize someone, I'm always like, Glup Shido, Glup Shido.
Shido.
And then I'm watching. I'll be doing a reaction, and I'm like, I know I'm supposed to know who that is. I'm forgetting right now. I don't remember, and Star Wars fans love to jump on you, and they're like, "You're not a
dare you.
fan.
How dare you not know this
How
character?
dare you not know who Glup Shido is?" And I'm like, "Okay, man, sorry."
Listen, to be frank, I think Zeb is the most forgettable of the main Ghost Crew cast because listen, he's very tropey, in the sense where he is the strong guy of the group and I'm the tough person, and like nobody in Star Wars Rebels, or not Star Wars Rebels, nobody in the fandom cared half as much about Zeb as they did like the Ghost Crew. And there are a couple things to like about Zeb, his arc with Agent Callus. There's some cool dynamic there. He had a couple of interesting moments, but I feel like if he died, like nobody would have like a super violent reaction to that character's death. I think he's cool,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's like everybody's favorite. I think it's like, oh, hello, but it's
Yeah,
more like,
what's his-
hey, if you know who this is, it's a treat. If you don't, it's not a huge deal.
What's his species called again? By the
Lasat.
way, okay,
Lasat.
Lasat. That's the other thing that gets me is there's a lot of characters that kind of look like that, and I'm like, okay, we have it going from cartoon to live action. Who's the other one? Jero Tapal also looks like that. Who's the other guy? I'm forgetting his name. There's another guy who looks like this too, and I'm totally blanking on it. Either way, that species, I feel like they all kind of look the same anyways. So, whatever. Roast me in the comments. I don't care.
Look, it was cool. It was cool to see him. It was very unexpected. It was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. And it was just cool to see, like, hey, here's your little Here's your little piece of here's your little treat before we get into Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So
Well, this
it was
just
cool.
means I need to heed your advice and finally start watching all the episodes, because I've seen like maybe 4 or 5 total, and I need to watch the whole season. So that's a good reminder. Maybe we'll stay tuned and do some reaction videos, and everyone can rewatch it with me and experience it through virgin eyes. So okay, so
Experience them through your virgin eyes.
Captain Tiva is with Glupshido in the bar, and then he goes to Coruscant and sees Colonel Tuttle, right? Who is played by, what's his name? I should have looked this up beforehand. Tim, who plays Tuttle in this show? Hold, please.
I remember Dad was like, it's the guy from Saturday Night Live. And I was like, who?
Yeah.
Wait, what's his name? Captain what? Would you say
Tim
Tittle?
Meadows. Sorry. Tuttle. Tim Meadows. That's what it is. Tim Meadows. Hilarious,
Meadows.
dude. This guy he's such a good comedic actor. He has so many good parts. Mean Girls. I mean, there's a million things. Saturday Night Live.
Oh my
He's been in
God.
so much stuff.
That's what it was. It was driving me crazy when I saw him in that scene for the first time. I was like, there's something about the way that this guy is saying things that is really familiar to me. And the second you said the principal from Mean Girls, it all of a sudden it clicked.
He has really good like bit parts in a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff. Like obviously Saturday Night Live, but then he's also in like the Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story, and what's the other one? Someone with Andy Samberg, Never Stop, Never Stopping or something. He just has funny parts. I like him a lot. I think he's a great actor, and anytime I see him, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. He always has a good, funny energy, and I thought he played this part well too. A little understated, but good, you know?
He has likable energy.
Yeah, likable. Yeah, he's a likable guy. He discusses Nevarro with Captain Tuttle in the pirate attack, and then this chick, Elia Kane, Citizen Kane, joins the conversation, stating that Nevarro should have joined the Republic if they wanted to help.
Which, by the way, why are you inserting yourself into this conversation?
I thought the same thing. You would
Who
think the
invited
New Republic people would be like shunning the Empire people. That's how it would probably logically work. If you had a bunch of Nazis out of Germany that were trying to get reconditioned into society, people would be pretty mean to them, and that's kind of how people viewed the Empire, you would think. And so she just comes in and starts inserting her opinion. I thought that was dumb. Who cares about your opinion? Shut up.
I don't think it was like a super well written scene. She could have just been overhearing them the entire time. She could have been standing out and like listening and trying to get information, and then maybe Carson picks up on it a little bit.
Yeah, the only purpose of her in that scene was to discourage the guy from sending the troops out. But like, you could have just had that character be more like
staunch,
firm, and headstrong, and just be like, no, I'm not doing that. We have other fish to fry. We can't save every single planet, especially ones that aren't part of the galactic agreement or whatever. I don't think she was necessary in that scene. I don't think her character is really contributing that much. Sorry, I don't know.
I think she's a good standoff to the side character, you know, who was basically doing Moff Gideon's bidding in the season 2. But other than that, like, she doesn't garner that much interest.
Yeah, I think, based on my theory, that the reason, because I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are still trying to clean up the mess of the sequels, and so I think this is tying into the whole cloning thing and the sequel stuff, and they're trying to start planting the seeds for why the New Republic failed. And if that's the case, if that's what they're doing, what would have made this a better scene was if you have Captain Tuttle just say, no, we can't do this.
Yeah.
And then you see that they're, I don't know,
Carson
disorganized.
gets frustrated.
And it's not working well. You know what I mean? And that also just kind of sets the foundation a little bit more for why the New Republic is failing. And we've already kind of seen that in that the Candyland episode with Citizen Kane and Dr. Pershing and stuff. But like, if that's what they're trying to do, they should have cemented that more into this scene, in my opinion.
Look, you could have taken Citizen Kane's dialogue and given it to the principal from Mean Girls and have him be the person to fight back, like you said. And then you can kind of play with their ideals of what the New Republic is supposed to be. But I think it was just kind of like a scene.
They did have a really
she annoys me like crazy.
Yeah, they did have an interesting line here where Tiva says that her views are very imperial in nature. Yes, they are. I liked that line of like, why are we thinking like this? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was just a good part of the scene. But I also just didn't like the fact that she was in that to begin with. I'm like, who are you? Like, why are you even in this guy's office? I don't know. Weird. Anyways, they say no. Captain storms out of the office, and so he has to take matters into his own hands. He is able to track down the Mandalorian covert and walks up to the entrance of the hideout. The Mandalorians are obviously like, "What? How'd you find us?
How did you find us? It's a total mystery. We're so secretive. We're so good at hiding."
Tifa's like, "Oh, dude, your boy snitched. R5 snitched on them and told them where they were." He's having a kind of a funny role in this show, which I appreciate.
Does that mean they're going to tank R5 now? It's like, oh, you ratted us out, so now we got to kill you.
I'd be pissed if I was them. I'd be like, dude, what the hell? We let you into our covert, and you're just ratting us out. We can't trust you. Tifa says that Din Djarin's friend, Greef Karga, was under attack and says, please, come help. I need someone to come help them. He's being a good guy, the Captain Tifa.
He seems very nice and polite.
He's a nice young man. He's just a distinguished gentleman.
He is nice and polite, and he seems like he'd be a delightful person to talk with. Also, the actor.
I bet he is. Also, by the way, his jacket, his bomber jacket, is sick. I want one of those.
It's awesome.
That was really cool costume design. I thought, like how they're trying to make it like he's like a World War II pilot kind of thing with his insignias and stuff. Very cool. Cool.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he's cool and polite, and I really like him. I hope they bring.
He's
him
also he's just well cast. Like he just seems like a Republic X-wing pilot.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
So he leaves and he's like, I promise I won't reveal the location. Then we cut to a
so
scene.
Nice and polite.
He is very nice and polite. We cut to the scene of Din Djarin holding the hammer of the armorer, proposing his plan to help Greef Karga. I thought this was interesting as he's talking with the Mandalorians, giving him a speech, and he's holding like the hammer. It's like, is that like the conch from Lord of the Flies? It's like if you have it, you're in control. I guess it kind of is, right? It's like that's what gives you the power to speak. It's like their little speaking stick. After he pitches them on his plan, Paz Vizsla stands up, asked to take the hammer. He's played by Jon Favreau, isn't he? Paz Vizsla, at least the voices. I don't know if he's in the armor and stuff, but that's his voice, right? Mm-hmm. Very fitting, considering he might be related to Pre Vizsla. I'm guessing
he's
they have the same last
absolutely Pre Vizsla's descendant.
He must be. He has to take the hammer. We think he's going to. We think he's going to shit all over Din's plan and be like, I don't want to do that. This was kind of predictable, by the way. The whole time I'm thinking, yeah, he's going to be like, all right, let's go. He just saved his son. It'd be such a dick move for him to be like, no, we hate Din and his stupid plan. He says, why do we do it? Because we're Mandalorians. And they will help Din and Bo-Katan after they saved his son, Ragnarok. Outside, Kreese tells the Mandalorians they need to operate as a tight military unit, and they decide to use her fighter to drop into the city. We also find out the name of her ship in this episode as well, which I think, unless I misinterpreted this, but I think it's called the Gauntlet, which is kind of a sick name for a ship. Did you catch that?
Is that the official name?
Someone said something about it. It's a Gauntlet fighter, as far as I know.
Oh,
I don't know if that's the name of her ship, but that's a cool name for a ship. I didn't know that previously.
Is it a Gauntlet fighter or is it?
I think so. I don't know.
Fighter?
It's either the name of it or it's the type of fighter.
Either way, that's sick.
It's a sick ship. I've loved her ship since we saw it. I'm like, that's awesome. It's one of the cooler Star Wars ships. They're all good, by the way. The Marauder too, like Bad Batch's ship, is awesome as well. Din's old ship, the Spiky Peter, what was it called?
The Razor Crest.
Razor Crest. I was close. Spiky. The sharp objects. The pirates are fooling around in Nevarro. Funny scene here, as like they're sitting outside a cafe and they ordered food, and the guy's like bringing out their food, and then they like knock him over. I know pirates are jerks, but like he's bringing you your food. Now he has to go make a fresh meal for you.
Well, this guy just stayed in the city too. He didn't think to flee.
I guess. I don't know. I mean,
it's like, hey, we're pirates and we're assholes because we trip old men who are carrying our food to us.
Yeah. Also, there was another scene we forgot to cover, which is when Greef Karga's walking outside of the city with everyone. They've escorted, 40 people live in the city. Either that or a bunch of them decided to stay or got blown to pieces.
Yeah, I was going to say, not many civvies on...
I wouldn't, if I'm being honest, I would not trust Greef Karga as a leader if I was one of those people. I would be like, what's going on, dude? Like, you're not doing a great job. He's like, I called the New Republic. And they're like, yeah, okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
not a whole lot of faith in him.
And there's no guard on that planet.
No.
And weird. He's also an old man, so.
Yeah. Either way, pirates are being jerks. The Din Djarin flies in and starts attacking. They start doing their plan. They send the fighters out to go start shooting back at Din. Din's distracting them. Cool scene here, by the way. Really cool fight sequence. This was an interesting part of the season, I thought, was this whole rescuing scene. The flight sequences were great. Very well shot. The pirates in the
Very
city,
well
like
directed.
the prosthetics, the costumes were really cool. Lots of different types of aliens there. I thought that was well done. So that was a lot of the strong suit of this episode, I thought.
What was the little, playing off what you're saying, the little pig man that kind of looks like Smee from Peter Pan?
Oh, yeah, the guy who looks like the
Yeah,
I
he
Have
looks like
Spoken
Smee.
from season 1.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
same.
Mr. I Have Spoken. If he's Smee, then Gorian Chart is Captain Hook. I thought all
They
the
took
alien...
some major Peter Pan vibes here.
Yeah, major Peter Pan vibes. And if these characters really do show up in Skeleton Crew, then it's going to be overboard Peter Pan vibes. But I agree with you. I think it was wildly creative, and also the camera direction for these fight sequences I thought was really quite good.
It was very well shot and very engaging, I thought. Kryze flies her gauntlet fighter over the city. So it's a gauntlet fighter. That's the type of ship. All right, so we figured
So it's
out.
it's the brand of ship.
It's a brand of ship. Yeah, it's like a Honda Accord. The Mandalorians drop to the surface while they're being distracted. Bo-Katan takes out the engines of the ship, and Shard orders the fighters to regroup. The Mandalorians get down on the ground with the pirates and help run them out of the city. Really intense sequences here, really cool. The armorer comes in. That's a cool scene of her. I still don't know how I feel about her. I get weird energy from her character. I feel like she has ulterior motives. But this scene of her taking out the pirates as they're shooting at the Mandalorians down there was pretty badass.
Yeah, I think her action sequences are always really good. But the more we see of this character, the less I trust her.
Yeah. I feel like she's got
so
something up her sleeve.
suspicious. Yeah, especially at the end, which we'll eventually get to. But the ending just had me like, what is going on with you?
Very
Ferret?
weird. Yeah.
So strange. And then I also think, and we can talk about this later, I think that the end with Carson, is that his name? With Carson making the discovery of the ship. I want to tie that back to the armor because I have a couple ideas on that. But yeah, she's weird, dude. She's weird
There's
energy.
Something going on. I think there'll be some kind of reveal with her at some point. They're developing her quite a bit. So all the planes have been shot down except for Vane. He, as the last snub fighter, abandons the captain. Shard's calling him a coward. Also, weird reason to stand your ground. He's just invaded this place, and now he's willing to die over just defending this place he just started attacking like a day ago. I don't know what Gorian Shard was thinking, but he's just like,
I don't even
I'm
really know
dying
what
on
his
this hill,
motives are.
literally. Like,
I don't know what his
care.
motives are. He's just like, ooh, you made me mad because you killed my men, and I'm gonna kill you now, and this is my only I don't know. It just seems like, okay.
It was just very lazy writing, I thought. Again, this is one of my problems with this show so far is I think the best way to illuminate it, and I should probably save this for the end, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go on a tangent right now.
Okay, let's
is
go.
The South Parkers, Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Yep.
They did they're obviously very successful comedy writers. South Park's a very funny show. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it is very funny and topical. And they're successful for a reason. And there's a clip you can see of them on the internet. They were guests in a writing class for somebody. And they said the key to writing a good story
Oh, I've seen
is
this.
you can't say this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. You have to have but and therefore in between each beat. So it has to say this happens, but this happens. Therefore, this happens. And if you do that, then you'll be able to condense all the plot points you want to hit, but they all have to relate to one another. They all have to have some sort of relation. So Gorian Shard invades Kessel Run. What's the place called? Cryptar?
Nevarro.
Nevarro. Sorry. Gorian Shard invades Nevarro, or like, you need something that happens before that. This happens, but Gorian Shard invades Nevarro. Therefore, this happens. You know what I mean? I feel like it was just very, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And it was just like he came in and he attacked, and it was just, there was no development with Gorian Shard other than we saw him for 2 seconds in an episode beforehand, and he just starts attacking, and then he's dead. No development. There was no reason for it, really. He was just kind of mad, to your point. He was just like, hey, you killed my guys. All right, you just sent out a bunch of other guys to go die in a fighter. You clearly don't care. And you're crashing your ship and killing yourself. Why? There was no reason
For
for
no
that.
purpose. For no purpose. I really like that you brought up the South Park video because I'm not kidding, dude. It's one of my 40 tabs on my phone right now because somebody had sent it to me like 5 years
Really?
ago, and it's right here. It's called Pitch Advice from the creators of South Park.
Yeah. There you go.
Like this, and this is pinned to my phone. So I love that you brought that up because that's honestly one of my favorite videos, and it makes perfect sense. But right now it just feels like things are happening because they're happening, and it doesn't really
Yeah.
feel like that there's
That's what I
any
mean.
the weight behind these decisions. And so when you bring that up, I'm not
Yeah,
going
it's
to
just
disagree
going,
with
this
you.
happened, then this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens. They don't connect with each other enough. That's the issue. Each episode just stands on its own too much, and that's a problem. Like, when I'm watching a show, I
Structure.
want to go, I can't wait to see what happens next. How are they going to tie this plot point in from 2 episodes ago to this one? And it feels like they just introduce stuff and then they take it away just for the sake of doing it. Like with Glep Shido coming in earlier in this episode. Is he going to come back? Maybe he'll be in the Ahsoka show. Probably. I would imagine so, because that's probably going to be like some kind of sequel to the Rebels show, whatever. But like, we're going to wait for a while. Also, same thing with Bad Batch. Cody came in. Cool. Now
What happened?
He just came in for the sake of coming in, and like,
Well,
that's not
Zeb
good
had a
storytelling.
cameo. Zeb had a cameo, and Cody actually played a massive part in the episode with Crosshair. So the fact that they didn't bring him back was really shocking because his role was very prominent, and they seemed to imply that there was going to be a story thread that they pick up. But I feel like it's a lot of teases right now in these Star Wars shows with no resolution to the teases. It's like we're just going to carry this out for as long as we possibly can. Also, side note for 2 seconds, it just started storming here. Can you hear that?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, well, I apologize to our listeners in advance if the rain
It's not bad.
knocks.
You can't
That's
feel
why I
it.
took out my headphones for a second when you were talking because I was like, is it thundering? So I apologize, guys, if you could speak of the devil. I apologize if you could hear thundering and rain. I just wanted to check in on that. But I agree. I don't feel like it feels really random and again kind of Clone Warsy. And I feel like that's a Dave Filoniism, having those random episodes that don't necessarily contribute to an arc. I don't have a problem with that once in a while, but it feels like a lot of these episodes are taking over these shows right now.
Yeah,
So much so
was
that they're losing
that was the
track.
major problem with like Book of Boba Fett. What was the story? What would you say the story was there? I don't really know.
I don't know.
It was like he had Tusken Raider friends, and then Din saved Grogu, and then
And then
fought
Cad
the
Bane
Pikes.
showed up.
Cad Bane showed up for a couple episodes, but he should have been the bad guy throughout. I mean, it was just there's nothing connecting each one where you feel like complete at the end of a season. Again, I hate doing this, but like I got to compare it to the shows I'm watching right now, like
Sopranos.
Sorry, not a great show to compare it to, because that's also a little unfair because Sopranos is probably the best TV show of all time, or one of the best. But like when you watch the first episode of the season, it's like they introduce, like season 5, they introduced Tony back in, and he always walks down the driveway in his bathrobe and gets the paper, and they're playing this song by, I think it's like the Sex Pistols or somebody, and it's like, and he's walking down, and you're like, there's our main character, there's the guy, it's like a reintroduction to that character, and he walks back down, he picks up the paper, and then it goes to another character and kind of shows what they've been up to from season to season, and then because we know time has passed from the last season to this season, and then something happens. The villain for that season gets introduced in that episode, or the antagonist for that season, and you don't really know that they're going to be the antagonist yet, but they're introduced then, and then you wait for the next episode because it kind of ends on a little bit of like I wonder what's going to happen next, and the next episode happens, and it just slowly builds throughout the season till the last episode, everything comes to a head. But every episode feels connected to the last, and you can say, oh, this character said this because of what that character said in this episode, and so it makes it more interactive watching experience because you had to pay attention to everything. It wasn't just like segmented episode after episode after episode. And so that's kind of my issue with this is I don't feel that connectivity between these episodes.
Yeah, you can't find the dots and draw the lines between them. They feel very standalone on their own. There's some elements that I feel like they're tying together, like the Bo-Katan thing, but again, it's sidelining Mando. in his own show. I mean, almost every single episode has ended on a shot of Bo-Katan.
Right. And this is another thing is like, who is this show about now? Let's not get too far from like, it's about Mandalorian. So what's his, and I think this is the issue. When they were writing these seasons, you need to take a step back. I'm not a writer, obviously, so take all this with a grain of salt. But in my opinion, you need to take a step back and go, who's our main character? What's his arc this season? What's he doing? Let's make sure we don't lose sight of that. Let's see where do we want him to start and where do we want him to finish and how do we get there? What are the plot points that we can, the little B and C plots that we can have throughout? Yeah. I don't feel like each one of these episodes has B and C plot, like A, B, C plots, like traditional TV writing has. And that's what kind of makes it feel a little bit weird. I also think the issue is that we don't have consistent episode lengths. You got to let some of these shows breathe. You can't have just this, and then this, and then this. And it feels very much like they're just, this is a bullet point that we have to hit in this scene, and then this is the next scene with this bullet point, and then this is the next scene with this bullet point. Instead of just letting it naturally flow together, and sometimes you got to let the scenes breathe a little bit, have some dialogue that intertwines. You don't always have to be showing me everything. Yeah, it doesn't.
That's why, part of the reason.
Like to me, just make every episode 45 minutes. And then you can fill it with more of these dialogue-heavy scenes. I don't know. It's not having consistent episode lengths each week is just, it's weird for me.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's contributing to the downfall of the overall season because right now I'm going through Columbo, like I told you, and each episode is anywhere from an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes an hour and 30. But it pretty much sticks to a structure of a time length. And so when I get into the episodes, I know it's going to be like an hour and 15 minutes or occasionally like an hour and 30 minutes. But I know, and I know what to expect when I get into these episodes, and you can tell like, this is how the episode starts, this is the middle, this is the end, and they have a very strict structure that they stick to. When you have all these randomized episode times, it's almost like, I don't know what kind of story I'm going to get.
Yeah.
It trains your mind to be a little wild, to not have this expectation of like, I'm going in for a structured story. It's like, ooh, we could either get a episode that has a lot of plot and a lot of direction, or we could just get like a random 30-minute hijinksy episode, much like animation does, like in Phineas and Ferb. And I think when you don't have a structure to stick to, it just kind of confuses your audience in terms of what they will expect to see. Because, like, I see these the episode length announcements every week where it's like, this week's episode is 58 minutes and 47 seconds. And so you're like, okay, well, cut 10 minutes out of that, or for the credits or whatever, cut 5 minutes out of that. It's like, we'll get down to 49 minutes. And I think that is problematic.
Yeah. You want to expect some kind of consistency, and I think
because human beings naturally want consistency. We crave structure,
Yeah, well, especially for a story. I mean, stories is the most human thing that is out there, and it's existed forever since the beginning of time. And like, there's good ways to tell stories objectively. Like, there's ways to get other people engaged in your story objectively. That's why you have writing classes and stuff. Like,
there is a good way to write and a bad way to write.
Right, and that's why these stories generally have structures. But like for me, when I think about this season, what is Din's story right now? Where is he going? Because
I don't know.
When we ended season 2, we're like, oh, next season will be about Mines of Mandalore, right? And then they covered that in 2 episodes, and now it's just kind of like, oh, I don't know what next episode's going to be like. I have no clue because they've jumped around a lot, So let's get to this next scene because this also kind of contributes to, I think, a little bit of the confusion in terms of the overarching storyline. Well,
also, you're making people not want to tune in when they have no idea or at least don't have a general idea of where a season's headed. It's going to be hard to get people to come in week by week. I mean, Teresa, our sister, just told me, she actually asked me the other day, she goes, have you watched Mando season 3? And I was like, yeah, I've been watching it. And she goes, oh my gosh, I've heard so many mixed reviews. And she's like, and most of them are not good. And I was like, and she's like, my friends just tell me they're losing interest. And I'm like, I kind of don't blame them right now.
Yeah, I mean, even with Beth, I showed her the second or third episode. Second episode, I guess. Mm-hmm. She was like, it's fine. But she hasn't been like, hey, let's watch the next one. It's like, she's just like, oh, yeah, okay. But like,
I mean, you don't leave the episodes thinking about him.
First two seasons, she was like, next one, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good barometer too, because she's not as much of a Star Wars fan. And so if you, at the end of the day, this show should be watched. It should be able to be watched by all. So Gorian Shard dies. Bummer. I thought he was a really cool addition, but he
My vegetable
sacrifices
man,
himself
why'd they kill him?
decides to literally die on a really weird hill. Of just he's angry and stubborn, I suppose. They bring down his ship. He explodes. Karga thanks the Mandalorians, says, "You now have a home on Nevarro," which was very nice of him. Very nice move by a very nice man. The townsfolk are happy. They cheer and celebrate. After the conflict, Paz Vizsla tells Kryze that the armorer would like to talk with her. She gets called to the principal's office. I don't know why she has so much power.
Principal's office.
This is so weird. And it also kind of goes against the whole Mandalorian stuff with like whoever has the Darksaber is the one who leads, but she's the one leading. But also then we get to this scene where they go into the sewer and she's talking about the Great Forge on Mandalore and blah, blah, blah. And tells Kryze to remove her helmet. Weird move. Again, you were just giving Din all this shit for taking off his helmet. He couldn't, and he has the Darksaber. He couldn't have been the one who walks between both worlds.
He's technically the rightful ruler, dude.
I know. That's why this is so weird. And she goes, Kryze is like, all right, I thought you were like, you cared about this. And she's like, do you respect my station? All right, cool it, bitch. All right, well, so I'll take off the helmet. I thought you were crazy about this. And then Kryze says, yeah, Bo-Katan's like, sure, I'll take it off. And then Armorer says not enough for only a few to walk the way and that all Mandalorians must walk it. Okay. And then now all of a sudden the Armorer's backpedals massively and is like, oh, now it's a huge deal. You saw the Mythosaur. It's the sign of a new age.
This is so weird. This is so weird because she was just denying her in the previous episode. She was
like, okay, whatever.
It's
cool.
Okay, sweetie. That
happens all the time. We all see
Mythosaur.
Yeah.
And then changes, I don't know. It was weird characterization to me.
And I feel like they could have condensed this scene with the last scene of last episode. You know what I mean? You could have put them both in the same one. Let's be efficient here, guys. It would have accomplished the same thing. You just did it in 2 parts and just spent more time. I don't know. Weird.
I just feel like they're not being super efficient in these scenes with the dialogue. Because what tends to happen in these episodes, I've noticed, is they will have a scene of 2 characters having like 30 seconds of dialogue or a minute of dialogue, and then they move on to the next scene. Whereas what you just pointed out, the fact that they could have condensed last episode's scene of Bo and the armor talking with this one to like make it a longer scene and actually have it be a conversation about differing ideals or a conversation on what they believe the Mythosaur to be or to represent. Because sorry, I'm going to circle back to this, much like how you circled back with The Sopranos. As I'm watching Columbo, and not to be a total nerd, but in the scenes where like Columbo's talking to a killer or he's talking to a witness, like the scenes of conversation go on for at least like 5 minutes where these characters just talk and they have conversations about things, and it's interesting and intriguing and adds to the depth of the characters. And most TV shows nowadays don't do that because they think, oh, our audience only has an attention span of like 30 seconds to a minute. And so they'll do that amount of time of conversation and then sacrifice any other conversation for action. And I don't think it's good. Like, we need to actually let people sit down and talk to each other and have conversations about like their ideals or their thoughts on things and really allow us to kind of sit with these characters and understand them a little bit more. But TV doesn't do that as much as it used to because of, they would argue in the sake of attention span. Or maybe the fact that they think that all people want to see is action. But I'm longing for the days where we actually had characters had conversations. And as I'm watching Columbo, I'm realizing like, wow, I wish they would bring this back. Like people actually talking to each other. Because that makes for a more interesting story than just action all the time. And I feel like a lot of this season is just action after action scene after action scene.
Yeah,
and it's driving me crazy.
Important. The way someone talks is a reflection of who they are as a person. So you need to hear them in order to understand what their motivations are, what makes them angry, what is interesting to them, what gives them motivation, why do they get out of bed every day, kind of stuff, So I mean, you're right. You are seeing less and less of that. But good TV shows today still do it. They're efficient with the dialogue. They make sure that it is still plot forwarding and that it's reflective of their character. But I don't feel like that was That's been super well done in terms of their choices of dialogue with some of these characters.
I just feel like they're not giving them a chance to actually talk. That's where I'm coming from. Is I don't think in this show they're not allowing these scenes to breathe and actually be scenes,
Yeah.
and for us to
Yeah.
connect with them.
Yeah.
Like I'm still waiting for like a 5-minute conversation between Din and Bo where they discuss like their upbringing and their Mandalorian ideals, but like in a really, I would like to see a drawn out conversation. We get
Yeah, and they
bits and
take their
pieces
helmets
of it
off
in-
and they start
yeah.
kissing and like
No, we're
and then
going the
they-
wrong direction.
no,
We're going
and then
the
they're
wrong
talking
direction.
about their hopes and dreams and how many babies they want to have together. And
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. In the Minds of Mandalore, we kind of got a bit of conversation between them, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to make me be like, come on.
that was
you
that
were
was
on
like the best
verge.
episode. That was like the best episode of the season though so far. That was a really strong episode, I thought, and that's part of the reason why.
They were on the
was-
verge of like really getting into the depth of the characters, but right when I found it to be getting interesting, they cut it off. And I'm like, just carry it out a little bit longer. Like,
The
I don't
show
think
needs
it'd
to
kill
feel-
you.
The show needs to feel more like a movie in that regard, and I don't know if it's
Yeah.
a budget thing. I can't imagine it's a budget thing, but like this weird decision to like we're having 35-minute episodes. What are you doing? It was the same issue with Obi-Wan. What are you doing? You're Disney. You have billions of dollars. Just please make these episodes longer. Do justice to what the storyline actually is. Now, that's all to say, like, I still thought this was a really entertaining episode. It's just, in terms of the way the story's being run overall, I'm like, okay, we have 3 episodes left. Like, what's going to happen in those 3 episodes? Watch them do something crazy with, like, the last 2 episodes both being, like, an hour, and they've just been
Yeah.
saving all the good stuff for the end. But either way, the armorer goes back to the Children of the Watch, her weird people, and says that Bo-Katan will bring other Mandalorians back. Paz Vizsla is like, hey, why is she showing her face? And then the armorer's like, no, this is okay now all of a sudden. This is great. And she can walk both worlds. And we don't care anymore, and she doesn't have to bathe in the waters of bathingness or whatever. And we have
Like
to
that
retake
to
Mandalore.
me, that
And then
little
it
scene with them,
focuses
and
in
then
on her face.
the longest panning ever. Actually, just get to the end of the episode and I'll bring it up.
Okay. Last scene, Carson Teva is patrolling Teva, whatever, dude. Glup Shitto is patrolling their deep space. He comes across the remains of a Lambda class T4A shuttle. The Imperial transport is what it looks like, the old Imperial transport. He is confirming with his team of what might be going on in the area. They said there's a missing craft that was reported, but details were classified. So he asked his astromech R7 to send out a probe to inspect the damaged shuttle. I thought this was a cool scene. Very creepy, alien-esque. They see the craft matches, the flight times of the craft matches the one of the ship that was supposed to transport Moff Gideon to his Republic trial. And they discover the bodies of several New Republic officers, as well as Beskar alloy embedded in the wall. This causes the pilots to question if Gideon could have been taken by Mandalorians. End of episode. Which is also an interesting scene. So
Yeah.
we think Death Watch here or what?
Mandalorians who are loyal to Maul. I don't
Isn't
know.
that technically like a faction of Death Watch, though?
I mean, I don't know the exact specifications of what kind of Mandalorians they are, but I don't know. I mean, that other theory that I keep thinking about too is like the armorer is an ex Mandalorian. I think is a really interesting theory, especially because she has those horns on her helmet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It would be interesting if they tied that into the armorer somehow. You know, that maybe she really did betray their culture the entire time and she wants to bring about like a new regime or something. And honestly,
she's pulling the strings a little bit.
Yeah, she's pulling the strings a little bit. Now, I don't know if they're necessarily going to do that. Not that I think that there's like a ton of evidence to that, but I think that could be a really cool plot point to explore.
What's her motivation for breaking out Moff Gideon, though? That he killed a lot of their like faction of people.
I don't know. I mean, it could be one of those things where it's like shock value and rips the rug from underneath you. I don't know. It's just
I think what they're trying to get across
theory.
here is that I think that it is. We know that there's other Mandalorians out there. They just had that scene with Bo-Katan bringing Mandalorians together. So it's just kind of saying there's other Mandalorians out there that might have ulterior motives. And it's kind of setting up for what that's going to
A
look like.
Mandalorian war.
Kind of, maybe. I don't know. She's going to go out there and find some more. Which, again,
Wait, what did she say to her? She was like, she's going to go and bring more of her brothers and sisters home, or what did she say?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I just... Why? Like, first of all, the armorer is the head of them for some reason, even though Bon has the... Din... Bon Kajarin.
That's their daughter's name.
Din has the Darksaber, but she's still in charge for some reason, and he doesn't want it. He's being a pussy about it, which I also find annoying. Why he's not like being a leader. He's like a badass, and he's awesome. He's such a cool character.
He also is not brought it up.
No, just kidding. Bo-Katan, you're the one who is in charge of everyone. You have to go unite everyone. And I'm just confused. It's like, what? You thought you guys were loyal to this creed thing or whatever. Now you're kind of throwing that out the window, and I don't know. I'm confused, frankly.
I'm confused as to why they haven't brought up if the culty part of the Mandalorian faction that Din's a part of, they haven't brought up at all like what their opinion is on the Darksaber and if they respect it and revere it as the rest of Mandalorian culture. Yeah. I thought that for sure that was something that we were going to explore this season. You know, Din having to step up as a leader, maybe like an unwilling leader. But we haven't even really gotten his opinion of what he thinks of the Darksaber. Yeah. He doesn't truly really understand it, but like they're not really... having these discussions. Like I wish that Bo and Din would just have a conversation where Bo's like, you don't understand the value of that thing, and here's why. And then maybe get into the history with Tar Vizsla a little bit.
Like why it's so important. Yeah. They've done a bad job of communicating that to the audience, like all this Star Wars lore. Like, if you want to get non-Star Wars fans to watch the show, they did a good job last season, I thought. This season, just not so much. And I don't know. I would feel less nervous if there wasn't only 3 episodes left. I'm just like, look, how are we going to tie all this stuff together? I'm still enjoying it. Like, this episode to me was still probably like a 6.9, 7.1. A little bit above average. It was very enjoyable. The fight scenes were excellent between the Mandalorians. The sound design was really cool this episode. I really appreciated that. Gorian Shard's really direction. Dope. Camera, the cinematography. Also, Gorian Shard, dude, the voice actor. I can't believe we haven't talked about this. Who is that? So good. Because it sounds like Meisterburger from...
Oh my god, it totally sounds like Burgermeister.
I hate toys, and toys hate me.
And toys hate me.
That's who he sounds like, dude. There's a couple scenes where he's talking, and I'm like, oh my god, it sounds like... If you guys haven't seen those old stop motion...
Carrie Jones.
Is that the guy's name, or is that Meisterburger?
No, that's Gorian Shard.
Oh, okay. Anyhow, yeah, I mean, but I just think overall my problem is with the season... the way it's going right now. I don't know what the plot is for Mando. I thought it was going to be the Mines of Mandalore stuff. He's redeemed now. What's his journey? Like, we just don't see him as much. And, like, there's not singular scenes like we had before where he had this internal conflict and he's trying to return this kid to wherever the kid belongs. And there's been great moments. Grogu also hasn't been in the show as much as I thought he's clearly not the focus of it. It's more on the Mandalorian, like, faction. I feel like, in Bo-Katan. Which, by the way, here's another side note. I like Bo-Katan a lot. I think she's been a really good addition to the show. I'm glad they brought her in. I was a little nervous about it for this season. Her entrance to the show was a little weird with her being like a pouty teenager, like hanging out on her throne. But I do like her. Like when she's in the scenes, I'm like, cool. I like her. She's a good female lead, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think she has nice...
Katie Sackhoff is really good as her.
I think she has nice chemistry with Din. I think they play well off each other. Like in their scenes, I think that there's like a nice
well, you have to. If you're going to be dating, like they're a good boyfriend and girlfriend. They're a good couple. So like, you know, if you're dating, you have to have good chemistry. And they clearly are. They're sitting all nestled up all close next to each other in the Mandalorian council thingy. It's like mom and dad with their little son.
Shippers never stop. I'm
just saying, it makes sense. It's good chemistry. That's what it is, and it's feeding through on the screen. So that's a really big positive of the show, I think, as well. Is she's been an excellent addition. I think they've written her very well, and we've seen some development with her. And I think we've probably seen more with her than Mando this season.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
But also,
I don't mind the highlight on her. It's just like, can we bring Din more into the mix? Can we explore him and his conflict? Because right now his conflict doesn't seem to be playing out that much, you know. He seems kind of just chill to do whatever he's told, and I don't really like that, you know, because like any important part of any religion, I would say, is the questioning part. You know, when you sit there and you question, you're like, is that the way that things should be done? Or are you just
Yeah.
going to blindly follow what you're told? And I feel like he's just blindly following what he's told. And I'm like, when is that moment going to happen of him being, I reject this. I cannot stand by this. Like, I've stood by these values my entire life, but some of them are wrong.
Yeah.
And
And also
we
like
just don't have much conflict there. And I'm kind of bored.
I think we just need more moments of him like in his own show. And also like one of our viewers brought up this point. You and I have talked about it, like the show title being like The Mandalorian. Is it about him or is it about Grogu? Either way, we're not getting much of that. Like some of the strong moments of the show are the little ones. Like even when he's with Grogu last episode and they do the little dart thingy, you know, and he's like teaching him. You know what I mean? Like teaching him the way, and also the little moments of showing him through the galaxy. Like, hey, a Mandalorian needs to know how to navigate, and that's what this thing is. Like, those are great moments of the show. Can we see more of that? And it just feels very fragmented, I guess, and like a little all over the place. Just so I'm just a little nervous moving into the next episodes, but I enjoyed this one. I thought there was a lot of really cool stuff in it. I just think these next 3 episodes before it's over with, like they got to be really strong for this to end up being like a great season for me. And even if they are really strong, I mean, there's a couple episodes in this season you could probably skip, you know, and that's not
Oh
a
my
great
gosh, yeah.
thing. You don't really want to say that with a TV show. So I don't know. We'll see how it ends up, but I enjoyed it. I just am a little nervous. I think that's fair
completely
thing
fair.
to say. Yeah.
I think it's completely fair to say. I'm also kind of I've already expressed my opinion, but I'm in the same boat with it right now. It's just like I keep waiting each week for it to pick up and it's not. And
Yeah.
that's really concerning to me is I don't feel like that they have a structure or an overall goal for what this season is, especially in regard to Din. I feel like there are a lot of great ideas here, but they're half-baked ideas. And they weren't really tied tightly together. And I think we're seeing the result of that right now. Also, I just think that Disney was like, hey, we have to have Baby Yoda in this season because he makes money and you can't keep him separate from Din. I just think that this season would be a lot more powerful had Grogu not been in it. Like, bring him in at the very, very end of the season, but give Din some space to go on his own, like, journey and learn things
That's a
about
huge
himself.
mistake. You also have to, you as a viewer have to want it more. It has to be like an earned reunion. And if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, you're watching this show going, what the hell?
Yeah.
They're back together?
Somehow
Like,
Grogu returned.
yeah. I mean, that dude, that's not good. You want to have those first couple episodes of like, when is he going to get back to him? And then maybe like the 3rd or 4th episode, they have this big reunion, you know, which was done. Like, I liked that Book of Boba Fett episode was amazing. But if you haven't watched that, which a lot of people haven't, then you're just left wondering, okay, that felt really like, I feel kind of cheated in terms of the storytelling. So I don't know. I mean, this is a good segue because our viewers had some thoughts too that I'd like to read out. And there's one in particular.
Okay.
That I'd like to read out. So let's get into viewer thoughts for this show. If you guys want to be participating in the show, go to our community page or write us at anotherstarwarspod@gmail.com. Steve McGowan wrote, I liked it, but I prefer the serialized format better, where Din and Grogu had a goal and worked to achieve it through various side quests. There's too much on the table now to finish up in 3 episodes. So this kind of, like, I think other people are feeling this way too. I don't think it's just me and you, where we're like, we want to have more structure here.
Yeah, it's just the lack of structure. And I think a lot of people are just getting frustrated. They're like, we keep waiting for something to happen and then it doesn't.
Yeah. Red Wing said that was incredible. Brandon Deeks says another great episode. It slaps. Reese says 4 cameos in one shot was wild. I mean, a lot of people bringing up the Deborah Chow Filoni, Rick.
Deborah Chow
Famuyiwa.
Filoni, Rick, Zeb.
Yeah. Glorpshitto. What is his name? Glorpshitto.
Shadow.
Good episode, but it might be a bit late to save this season. Ooh, that's what Keith says. It was great to see a certain person show up, even though if it was for a few seconds. I haven't seen a good episode of season 3 yet, writes Owen. Bad Batch has this show beat by miles. Wow.
Bad Batch is definitely stronger. I'd have to agree there.
Back to the Future fan wrote, good, but I miss when Din Djarin was the lead in his own show. Also, is Bo-Katan really going to be the next Mandalore? Really? Not Din? Yeah, I mean, dude, I think people agree with us. I don't think we're like the minority here. I think there's just a disconnect, you know?
Yeah, it's not as engaging this season. You know, I mean, I'm already reminiscing back to season 2, like with the episode with Bill Burr was one of my favorites of the entire season.
Oh yeah, dude, there were so many strong
There
episodes
were
last
so
season.
many strong episodes last season. I went back the other day and I just rewatched that scene with Bill Burr, the sleazy Imperial guy, and then Din with his helmet off.
Oh
It's
yeah,
some of the best acting in
dude, I
the
forgot
entire
about that
show.
scene. Yeah,
And
like
he's just, it's
because
so
dude,
good.
they're letting it breathe there, where they're just like
Yeah.
talking, you know. And then
Yeah,
you can
and you can see
Bill
how
Burr getting more and more pissed as the scene goes.
Bill Burr's getting pissed off, and Din looks so uncomfortable. And the way, okay, I gotta go off on tangent here for a sec. The way Pedro Pascal moves in that scene, his body language, he moves like how he is in his armor. So he looks like he's been taken out of his shell and he's still moving like he's in the shell. And you can just tell he's squirming. He's so uncomfortable in that scene. And then you complement that with like Bill Burr sassing back at this awful Imperial officer to the point where he's like, I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to kill him. It's such a good moment. It's one of the best moments in the entire show. And I feel like the quality of season 2 in comparison to season 3 is just leagues different.
Yeah,
It just doesn't feel the same.
no, it doesn't really. And I'm even looking at these episode summaries now for season 2. The Marshal, when the first episode of that season, the passenger when he's
Transporting the frog lady.
transporting the frog lady, which it was just a cute, great episode. The
Really
one where
funny.
they meet Bo-Katan and stuff, like her introduction to the show was awesome and like badass of them like fighting the stormtroopers, and then her and Din kind of like he's like pissed at her for taking her helmet off or whatever. The Jedi, the one with Ahsoka, dude, the tragedy when Grogu gets taken, and like then those last 2 episodes, like it flowed really nice. Like he's searching to find what am I going to do with this kid, and then they get kind of caught along the way and other stuff, but it was definitely more cohesive. It was so yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of sitting here right now, like I don't know. It's hard for me to be excited about next week because we have no clue what's going to happen. That's not a great way to run the show. I don't have any questions for it really, other than like, all right, who are the Mandalorians that saved Moff Gideon? That's pretty much my only question. And are we going to meet more Mandalorians? But there's no, I don't know. There's nothing like, are you sitting here like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch next week?
I mean, here's the thing is I've been full disclosure, I've been watching The Mandalorian, and then that same night I'll watch an episode of Columbo and I'll be way more invested in the episode of Columbo that aired 50 years ago as opposed to something that's airing now. Like I pretty much forget about the Mandalorian episodes after I watch it. And I hate saying that, but it doesn't like stick in my brain. I've thought about the Bad Batch season 2 finale for like the last 2 days. It's been stuck on my mind. I think it really made an impact on me. Like I got pretty fired up after watching that. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I
was
did
thinking,
too.
like,
Yeah,
like you and I were texting like crazy after we
Yeah.
watched that, and I just don't have any feelings like that towards the
I did
Mandalorian
about
right now.
the second episode. I felt I liked that one a lot. When he
Mines
goes
of
to the
Mandalore?
I really liked that episode, and that was one I thought about afterwards. But since then, I kind of agree with you. I'm just kind of like, oh, all right. Like even with Obi-Wan, there was some episodes where I'm like, ooh, like I can't wait to see next week. Like what's gonna happen? You know,
Yeah.
I just don't get that same feeling here, which is just a little disappointing. But look, there's still hope. I think overall, it's not a bad season. It's not like Book of Boba Fett where I'm like,
No,
oof,
my God, no.
some really bad choices. It's just last season was so good that it's just not quite living up to that same expectation for me. And I think that's kind of how you feel too. And by the way, reading fan thoughts, it feels like a lot of people feel that way. So if you guys feel that way, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Head over to our community page or email us at anotherstarwarspod@gmail.com to be featured on the show. We will talk about Bad Batch. That there's tons to talk about there, which you and I need to record an episode for that as well, which we will do. Coming up next, and if you guys want to see that, make sure to click like, subscribe, share this video with your friends and family and your cousins and maybe your work colleagues, and tell them to watch Matt and Melissa talk about Glup Shido and The Mandalorian
And the Mandalorian.
and Bad Batch, because boy, oh boy, there's a lot to break down there. And that was an episode that got me pretty fired up in a couple different places in terms of like Star Wars
Star
ness.
Wars.
It was such good Star Wars goodness in that episode. And I have my thoughts about the season as a whole, but we can talk about that on that show. And then we'll obviously got to finish up this season, and we have other videos we want to make too. So if you guys want to be a part of that, you got to subscribe and like and keep coming back and click the notification bell and leave us good reviews and stuff on Apple, Spotify. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at @star_wars_pod. We appreciate the support, and let us know your guys' thoughts below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you hate me for missing Glup Probably. I've received enough hate for that, but that's okay. Bring it on, baby. And that's it for this week. Any final thoughts, Melissa?
I think ranking-wise of this episode, I mean, it'd probably be like a 6.5 out of 10, something like that. I mean, not horrible, but also like not great. I think that it had a lot of great camera direction. I love Gorian Chard. A lot of great creativity. Loved Gorian Chard. Rest in peace, my sweet vegetable man. I love the Mandalorian fight scenes. I think that there was a lot of praiseworthy stuff in here. I think director Peter Ramsey did a very, very nice job. It's just I'm taking away points because the structure just does not seem to be there. And unless they're able to pick it up in these last 3 episodes, I can feel myself like they're losing me. And
you know what? Yeah. Sorry.
I'm not. No, it's okay. It's just concerning because when you start to get this just complete indifference towards a piece of Star Wars media, that's just not a good feeling. You know, you want to get pumped up. Like, ideally, I want to have that feeling of when I was tuning into the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars when they aired.
Oh, yeah.
That was that was like the most pumped up I had ever been about Star Wars. And I just want to feel that way about all of it. And so, like, I'm feeling a little let down. And now that we're at episode 5, I'm like, ooh, they're going to have to do a lot to save this.
Yeah, I think also something we didn't talk about and then we got to get going is I did hear rumors that Jon Favreau threatened to walk away because Kathleen Kennedy was sticking her dirty, grubby little fingers into the storyline of Mandalorian too much. And they wanted him for some of the other shows they're making, but he said he would refuse to do it unless he had full creative control over Mandalorian. So I'm wondering if maybe that has something to do with it. The suit guys started sticking their fingers into his story, and they kind of almost ruined it with Book of Boba Fett and bringing Mando into that. And then with this season, some of the story direction. I'm wondering if that might have something to do with this, because this is not the Jon Favreau I know from season 2.
It does.
So
there's a disconnect. I honestly, it does not surprise me if the corporate men in suits are sticking their fingers in, because they're notorious for that. They don't want fans to make things for fans. They want to put like their vision, their take, you know, like it's
you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Michael Scott when they do the commercial and he's like talking with David Wallace about doing the commercial at their place, and he's like, or he's talking to Ryan about doing the commercial, and he's like, yeah, these guys, they're just trying to take this story and do whatever they want with it for this commercial. And Ryan goes, good, they're creative, you're not. And he goes, I'm creative, Brian. And I feel like that's who the guys in suits are. They're like, I am creative. It's like, no, dude, you got hired to run logistics at this company. You're not a creative writer. So get your fingers out of the pie.
You have business people doing the creative jobs, or business people trying to do the creative jobs because they want their take in it. And that's wildly problematic. It's just just let creators do their own thing. And next time you do a trilogy, please just let one person do it, for the love of God.
And make Bo and Din kiss each other and date and maybe get married on Mandalorian. So
basically, I just want structure. I would just like to see story structure. I would like to see some cohesiveness, because if there's not, I don't really see a reason to tune in each week. Not to end on a somber note. There have been things to enjoy, but
it's totally fair criticism. You're allowed to have that opinion, and I don't totally disagree. I think this is constructive criticism, and I'm still enjoying it, by the way, dude. I'm still enjoying it, and I'm going to continue enjoying it, and I have high hopes for the next 3 episodes. So, guys, let us know what you think. Are you enjoying it? Do you feel like there's room to improve? Please let us know, and we'll talk to you guys next week, unless you tune into our Bad Batch breakdown, which we will be doing shortly as well. So we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye-bye.